Welcome back to this new episode of BattleTIPS, featuring magic numbers. Now, if you've been watching any of my videos before, you probably know what the magical stun guard number is. That's 3, in case you were wondering. Now, this is actually a video wherein I'm going to discuss with all of you the magic numbers. These magic numbers are basically numbers through my play experience of around 400 plus games that I find to be very useful. Now, remember, there are a few caveats and a few assumptions I'm going to make, so be very wary about those. And remember that this is a medium level guide to selecting attack pairs and all of that. Because through knowing these numbers, you're able to select attack pairs easier because, well, you can just check whether they meet the number requirements so that you can ascertain whether it's a good or bad attack. Now, that being said, here are the few assumptions I'm going to make. Number 1, these assumptions are just based off using alpha bases alone. No styles, no nothing about that. Because again, if I try to consider every single character in existence, it'll drive me insane. Number 2, these are only guides, okay? They're not absolute. If I say that the absolute number for something is 5, that doesn't mean that having 5 of that thing will always win you the beat. No, because those are just the average values that most opponents have, and then stuff. So remember that my things are assumptions on averages and assumptions on the basis alone, without styles, without priorities, or whatever. Now, you might ask, how is that useful? Nobody is just no styles, and nobody just does all of that without adding bonuses, right? Remember that certain styles only buff certain parts of the attacks. What does that mean? So basically, if an attack buffs just the range, that means that the opponent is still going by the original base's power, priority, and stun guard values. That basically means that those magic numbers for those specific stats still are the same, even if the range has been modified by the style. So keep that in mind. Even if the opponent is able to heavily manipulate his stats, remember that he can only manipulate so many of his stats, and you can manipulate your own. So for example, he does a priority +2. If you match that with your own priority +2, then it just goes back to a neutral state wherein it's as if you two are just comparing bases. So remember that you can negate the opponent's style by using your own style stats, and at the same time, the opponent's style only buffs so few of his stats anyway. Now, without further ado, let me introduce to you the magic numbers. The magic number for range is 1 to 3. The magic number for power is 4. The magic number for priority is 6. And the magic number for stun guard is 3. Now, without further ado, let me explain every single one of them. Range first. And by range, I don't just mean the range on your attack pair. Like, for example, Strike has 1 range. I also mean effective range. Now look at Drive. Drive only has range 1 printed on it, but the before activating effect actually lets you advance 1 or 2 spaces. Henceforth, Drive actually has an effective range of 1 to 3 because you can advance 2, then hit the opponent on that space. Effectively, range 1 to 3. And that's very interesting because range 1 to 3 is also the magic number for range. Now, why is it 1 to 3? And it's pretty simple. In melee, the largest your opponent can dodge is using a burst. Now let's ignore using dashes because, heck, if the opponent dashes, you're gonna miss almost all the time. So it's not worth even considering for magic numbers because it results in a null beat, and oftentimes nobody really wins or loses during those beats. Oftentimes there are some and many exceptions to that statement, so don't quote me on that. But if you're in melee range, oftentimes the biggest the opponent can dodge you is by bursting away. And henceforth, most players retaliate to that by playing Drive, because Drive hard counters burst. And Drive has a range of 1 to 3 because that's the minimum you need to be able to mess with the opponent's burst and still hit them from melee. Basically, all I'm saying is if you're in melee range, if you play an attack that has range 1 to 3, it's highly unlikely that the opponent will be able to dodge your attack, sans doing a dash. Henceforth, that's why the magic number is 1 to 3, because by playing an attack that's 1 to 3 at melee range, you can almost always hit the opponent, regardless of what they choose to play. Next up should be power, but I'm gonna talk about that last and you'll find out why later on. So let's go on to priority. The magic number for priority is 6. Now, why 6? It's pretty simple. The fastest base in existence is, well, grasp. Again, dash doesn't count because I already explained why. Now, if the opponent's fastest attack is a 5, the way to beat that out is by playing an attack that has 6. It's as simple as that. And remember that the amount of priority you have more than the opponent doesn't matter. So 6 is more than enough to outspeed almost any character. Sans, of course, heavy speedsters who often run at 7 and 8. But aside from that, 6 is often enough a good bet when it comes to being the first player. So playing an attack with 6 gives you a high chance that you will be the faster player between you two. Next up is Stun Guard. Now, I've explained Magical Stun Guard 3 to all of you before, but let me explain it again. The average power of a base is 3. That's it. That's all you need to know. And since Stun Guard, it doesn't matter how much more Stun Guard you have than the attack. Simple as that. Stun Guard 3 because everything deals almost 3 damage or less. So keep that in mind and, well, use your Stun Guard well. And finally, we'll talk about power, the magic number for which is 4. Now, this one was talked about last because I had to explain to you why it's 4. And it's 4 for the simple matter that Magical Stun Guard is 3. That's it. You want to beat that Magical Stun Guard to stun the opponent. But it's also said last because power is the most variable one. Because oftentimes it's useless without all the other things. It's not good if you're not fast enough, it's not good if you can't hit, it's not good if the opponent still gets to retaliate. So it's based off a lot of other factors because you don't directly benefit from it as much as the other stats. But it can still be very useful if you have to stun the opponent. Just remember that the opponent has access to strike, which is more than the magic number for power, but at the same time, they only get to use strike every so often, so just watch out for it, okay? And that concludes this very simple episode of Battle Tips. It's fast, it's simple, it's easy. Just remember those values and, well, you're on your way to making better attack pairs. Now, if you like this video, or if you like anything about this game, check the description out below to check out more stuff about BattleCON and other level 99 games stuff. Trust me, it's awesome. Without further ado, don't forget your special action, and thank you, World of Indines. Thank you, and good night.